Alrighty, welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on Renee Schyjer. How's it going?
Good. How's it going?
It's going great. So, as I was explaining to you earlier, good thing we got to be able to do this because I've had some hiccups before, but glad to have you on. You've had a weird road to get to where you're at. So
Yes.
just to explain to everybody what you do and how you kind of got there.
Okay. So my story kind of begins with my husband. Well, me and my husband. He was a songwriter and incredible musician, but he has Alzheimer's now, and he got it when he was 60. And so now he's in a memory care facility, and he's, not the same person that he used to be. And so part of my whole goal when he got this, because of his beautiful brain, is we got his stories down into a book. And the book is called It's Not a Rumor. And the rumor is spelled the British way, Rumour. He wanted to be difficult. He's Mr. Artsy. But anyway, all his stories are in this book. And then also our love story, his, cool, funny stories from his childhood, from his bands. And he had different bands, different incarnations of himself. He reinvented himself a bunch of times and wrote a lot of songs. I feel like it's from, do you ever remember In Living Color?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, David Allen Greer played the blues man, and he would say, wrote a song about it. When I hear it, here it go. And that's exactly what he did. Something upset him, or something moved him, or something he was passionate about. He wrote a song about it. So that's the name of the book, is also one of his songs. And in the book, each chapter is named for one of his songs, and then the lyrics are at the end of each chapter. And it's just a really cool story. And when he started to lose his memory and his stories, I wanted to preserve them. So I had a co-writer sit down with him and meet with him a few times a week and go over all of his stories. And she just pulled all of his stories out of him, and then we combined it into a book. And it's amazing. I think it's really good, and it has so many different things. It's called A Rock and Roll Journey Through Life and Alzheimer's. And the first prologue is kind of my interpretation of how this happened, how this came along. And then it kind of goes into his whole story. But just so you know, we stayed really true to what he wanted. He wanted this book to not be, I was born, I lived, I died, or whatever. He wanted it to jump around in time. So we start off the book in the first chapter. We talk about the best days, I think, of his life and his time in being a band leader and being a songwriter and a composer and an arranger. And he used to play at all these famous LA clubs that maybe like in the late 70s, early 80s. And then after, towards the 80s, when things would start to become new wave, he was out. But he played at a place called Madame Wong's. And in LA, there was Madame Wong's East in Chinatown and Madame Wong's West in Santa Monica. And they packed the place. They played the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Troubadour. These are all famous clubs around LA. And I also think LA is kind of a character in this book, because there's so many stories about LA and what we used to do, how he used to promote the band, and how so many people would pack the clubs, and we all had such a good time. And it's kind of nostalgia, but it was fun. It was really fun. It was the best times of our lives. And he had an incredible journey. And so it's just, it's all his stories in this book. And there's pictures. Unfortunately, we wanted to add like 100 pictures, but the publisher wouldn't let us. But there's pictures, and it's just a fun story. It's like the guy who, it's kind of like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He worked his ass off. He was this great rock and roller. Everybody loved him, but never made a deal. I mean, the police opened for him. The motels opened for them. But he never got that record deal. And the reason why is he wouldn't give up the rights to those songs. He would not give up the publishing. He would not give up the songwrite copyright, nothing. He was like, you're going to take all my stuff, forget it. He was like really close to those songs. They're his babies. So I don't know. It's a really cool story. And then it talks about Alzheimer's, which I think there's not enough information out there on what living with someone like with Alzheimer's is really like, living with somebody with dementia. And I really want to educate people on dementia and Alzheimer's, because it's such, I know there's a lot of things that are out there that are really debilitating and hard for people to deal with, but with a disease or something like cancer, you have things to fight it. You have chemotherapy, you have radiation. With Alzheimer's, you have nothing. There's nothing. There's no drugs. There's nothing. It's basically just resistance is futile, as they said on Star Trek, the Borg. And it's just sad because he had such a great brain and he loved his brain and he loved knowledge and knowing things. And the fact that he has lost that is just crushing, you know. And I want people to know so much about it, because they ask questions that they really don't know where they're coming from. And a lot of times, like, oh, has he read the book? No, he hasn't known how to read since 2000 something.
Mm.
And, you know, and so then also he, you know, does he know your name? No, he hasn't known my name for 6 years, unfortunately. Does he recognize you? Does he know who you are? And he knows who I am, because people with Alzheimer's have an emotional memory. And so they remember people, because like even today, I visited him today and he knew me. I mean, it doesn't know me. It takes a minute for him to focus and to get, you know, me in the frame. I have to take my mask down, but he knows who I am, and he smiles and he's happy, and he just gets happier when I'm there. He laughs, and you know, he can't really say much. Basically what he says now is, I love you, babe. That's all he can say. And that's a great thing, you know, even though he's forgotten everything else and he doesn't even know where he is. He knows he loves me. So that's so cool. And there's some kind of beautiful thing in a way about it. It's like he doesn't know he's going through this. He doesn't know he's suffering, and he's in this memory care facility. I know, but for him, it's almost like an alternate universe, and it's not bad. You know, he's kind of happy. He's okay. He doesn't realize all of the bad stuff. So in that way, the brain is a good thing. You know how they say you forget trauma, something horrible you went through, and sometimes you forget it. I think in this way, it's a good thing, because he doesn't really know how bad things are, because he's no longer this guy, Freddie Moore. You know, he's Alzheimer's Freddie, you know, and so it's a little heartbreaking for me, but it's also, you know, there's some good things about it too, in that he became more social as this disease progressed. He was always such a loner. And they say socialization is good for you. It's good to have interpersonal relationships, and it helps with cognition and cognitive, you know, have interaction with people, just talking. And he was super shy, and, you know, on stage, he was a wild man. But when he was, you know, it was like Clark Kent and Superman, you know, at home with the glasses, you know, and just totally nerdy and everything, like that guy. And then on stage, just wild and crazy. So it was cool, but it's like an actor, you know, they can kind of reinvent themselves when they have to, or they have to become something they're not. So it's a really cool story. I mean, it has a lot of different aspects to it, you know, growing up, and then our story. And he was married to somebody famous, and she took his name, and then, but we won't talk about her. And then, and then he got the Alzheimer's. So, you know, it's an amazing life. I mean, and I had a great life with him. So it's really cool. And I just wanted to share it with everybody. And I'm so glad we got this book published. Thank God there was a guy in LA who remembered him from those days. And he's a book publisher, and he asked, he wanted to publish it, and it's great. So I think he would be proud of it. I think he would be happy with it, because it stays true to his story. And there's really nothing in there that's made up. You know, it's all true. Crazy stuff, and some good stuff, some bad stuff, but it's all in there. What a cool thing to have to preserve, someone's legacy kind of thing.
So how long have y'all known each other?
Oh my God. I met him when I was 13,
Oh, wow.
and he's my only boyfriend and my only husband. And I was just hanging around the band because my older sister was hanging around with the band, and they used to sneak me into all the clubs before I was old enough. And we just became friends. Like, he taught me how to play guitar. I play all of his songs, and we just had a connection. We had a really good bond, him and I, and we were really just best friends for a long time. And then once the famous marriage broke up, it was just me and him being friends. And then after a while, I said, well, maybe we should try moving this along. And he said, okay. So we did. And we've been together for 35 years. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
And, he's the love of my life. So
when you're putting the book together, did you have ideas of, the things that you wanted to put in, leave out, I guess be more specific about? Because sometimes when people hear bits and pieces of a story, they kind of develop their own idea of like, oh, this is what happened.
right.
But if you don't elaborate on the story, then people aren't going to really get the real grasp of what really happened. So are there anything particular that you really wanted to make sure people understood in his life?
Yes. And I think really, truly what he was about. The coolest thing about him is he was a rocker that never did drugs, never drank alcohol, never whored around, never, it's like he's the biggest nerd on the planet, but he was so happy. And he used to say to me all the time, like, I don't have to get high. I'm high on life. And he was so passionate about his music and his songwriting and then studying everything about it. He got so into like Shakespeare that he decided to buy every book about Shakespeare and just immerse himself. He loved rock en Espanol. So we started learning rock en Espanol. We became obsessed with Brazilian music. I know every Brazilian artist there is. It was like just a passion for learning and knowledge and interested in everything and people and he just was so open to it. I think he had an intellectual curiosity that made him so much fun and interesting to be with. And everybody loved to talk to him, and he could talk about any subject, and just really see people for who they are and not judge them, and he just had a real good connection with especially other musicians. Any kind of musicians, he just felt some kind of kinship, some kind of bond, and he could talk about it with everything. He was kind of like Prince in a way that, Prince played all the instruments on his first album, Dirty Mind, and I loved that. My husband did that too. He played drums, he played guitar, he played sax, he played bass. He played all those different things, and he would make demos and he would record all of the tracks himself until he got, better musicians or whatever to do it all. But he loved the creativity of it, and he even transferred that over once the music kind of thing faded out. Like, I told him, you have to get a real job now because we don't have any money. So when he got a real job, he found computer programming. And what he found about it is computer programming is kind of like songwriting. And he kind of liked it. So he became a computer programmer, and he really enjoyed it too, because he also didn't have to do the social side of things. He could just be, with himself and write all this software and junk. And he really loved it, and he had a knack for it. So it's an interesting thing that those two things you wouldn't think would go, but because it seems like music is sort of right brain, which is creative, and computing his left brain, which is like analytical, but somehow they were together, and it worked for him.
I actually do programming myself, and
Yeah.
it's like control logics is my main thing that I do, and I also do music, but yeah, they are extremely similar.
Really?
Even even down to explaining like the technical side of it. So um, a lot of time I have to deal with like drives and motors, and
Hmm.
drives they function off of two different speed references. You could do either RPMs or hertz, and
Hmm.
everybody knows hertz is like the way sound waves move.
Right.
And so I actually had to explain um, to somebody what they were like, what's a low pass filter? I was like, aha. In music, if our listeners, if they don't know, in music, if you're using a low pass filter, you're saying you're letting all the low frequencies pass through. So
Hmm.
what you're saying is you want everything that is higher than a certain point to be able to be heard. And the same thing in the technical world, if you're dealing with drives or motors or anything like that. So
Right.
they are extremely related. Like,
Yeah.
and for him to be such a good musician, it actually makes sense for him to
Right.
be good in a technical field, and it just shows his brain's ability to connect the two.
Hmm. Yeah. I think I think that was really interesting because he even used to do stuff like he would be at home and he would want to figure something out, like, I don't know, his taxes. So he would just write a program to figure out, all this stuff. And it wasn't like an Excel. It was like he loved this program called K-Edit. Do you know this K-Edit?
I
Probably
don't.
too old, but he would write these programs and just do it. I mean, we'd make this thing, whatever it wanted to happen. So it was so cool. And I don't know, it's kind of inventive that way. And I think, I mean, and there's another really funny story about how in some, he was super shy and not, always picked on and, kind of the wimpy guy. But in some of, and when it came to music, super brash. You know, he's from originally from Minnesota. So his first band was called Skokie and the Flaming Pachucos. And they were really based, he was influenced hugely by Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. And so everything was, he was also going to the University of Minnesota, majoring in music theory. So everything was very experimental and like these huge, like long 17-minute songs and shit and everything. But um, he started to get managed by Bob Dylan's brother, little brother, who lived in Minnesota. And so Bob Dylan's little brother says to him, well, I have a song of Bob's if you want to do it. And he's like, no, I got my own song. I don't need Bob Dylan's song. It's like, who turns down Bob Dylan's song?
Yeah,
But that's what he was.
I think a lot of times people who are truly um, really into their music, that kind of thing happens. It's like they bet on themselves, and they don't need that kind of that handout that a lot of people are usually freaking out over. A lot of
Mhm.
people, they just hear Bob Dylan, they freak out. But
Right.
somebody like him, they're just so engulfed in what they're doing,
Yeah.
that anything else doesn't really matter. It's just I'm doing
No.
what I'm doing, and I like what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be involved with anybody else's viewpoint. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
even with you saying that he didn't want to give up his copyrights and his publishing,
Yeah.
it didn't appeal to him to share his vision and his goals with another company, because
Hmm.
I always say, nobody's going to take care of your music like you take care of your music.
Right.
So
Right.
that's probably what he was thinking with his
Yeah.
visions of, I like what I like, and I want to keep doing me. I don't want
Yeah.
to bring outsiders into my world of
Right.
music. And people might not understand his
No.
music the way he understands it.
Well, and it's true. And, it's why he never got that big record deal or why he never made it big. But I think in some ways he was happier not doing that. It's like he continued to have that drive and always writing and always creating and stuff. And I think if you made it, maybe you wouldn't be that driven anymore. I don't know, I don't know if that's true or not, but it just seems like that. Um, I don't know. It's almost like he didn't want to sell out because he would have to give up 90% of the rights to everything. So, and it's all different now, but his music is on Spotify and iTunes and stuff, but it doesn't really sell much. I mean, I'm the one who listens to it, but yeah, I'm covering him up right here.
So one thing that I've always thought about is the idea of when you're in a state where you're not there anymore. So, if I pass away one day, people are going to have all my podcasts to listen to. And
Yes, that's great.
yeah, it's such a interesting thought. And
Yeah,
I never really thought about that because, most people, I would say the majority of the population doesn't have a podcast. So,
right,
how does that make you feel about knowing, like, he could have been a great guy just being a computer programmer,
right,
but you wouldn't have had the music that
right.
you get to listen to and get that emotional attachment to something that you can hear, and I would say you can feel music.
Hmm.
Um, how does that make you feel knowing that you have the music instead of just trying to communicate with him whenever you see him?
I think music played such a big part of his life, I mean, like I said, he wrote the songs based on how he was feeling at the moment. So the songs all have meaning, and the lyrics are always so heartfelt and amazing, and you can feel it. You can feel that passion in there, and thank God we have the songs. I mean, I remember back in 2016. So he was fine. He didn't know he had Alzheimer's, until about 2014. We went and got an MRI because I was really getting scared. And they tested him and he had an amyloid PET scan. And the PET scan did show that he had plaque on his brain. And from then on, that's when I was starting to write down everything, and had a co-writer sit with him all the time about remembering all those stories and the songs and listening and doing all this stuff. And it actually helped him improve, which
Mm,
is amazing to think that writing this stuff and talking about it. Yes, he got emotional, but of course it was like helpful to his brain to relive that, to have those memories and the songs and we laughed and cried and all this stuff, but it was a really good process and a journey of it. I think it helped him a lot with his brain. Um, Unfortunately, I had him on all these supplements to try to help him. You know how people take a lot of fish oil for the brain, and they have curcumin, which is turmeric, and tons of supplements. And he was, I was having him do coconut oil and all these things. But unfortunately, that thins your blood. And
mm,
when you have plaque on your brain and you have thin blood, the plaque can hit a blood vessel. And he basically had a stroke. They called it a brain bleed, but it was basically a stroke. And I rushed him to the hospital because he was talking gibberish. And at that time, he hadn't been doing that yet. And I remember being at the hospital and I would just walk the hospital, right? Because when he was in there, I would be scared and nervous that something bad was going to happen. And I was, emotional, but I kept singing his songs in my head all the time. I sang his songs over and over. He's got songs about everything. So this one time I'm walking around and he's got this song called All the Same to Me. And it says, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm not about to sleep. And I couldn't sleep. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm singing his song and I'm singing his song. And I was walking around crying and singing the song. But those songs were so meaningful to me, and that I'm so glad we have those songs preserved, and he's got this music publishing website that every one of his songs is on. It's called Demophonic Music, and there's an audio archive and all pictures and all kinds of stuff. This is his own publishing that he created, this website himself, and they're all his demos and all of his stuff. I go to that website all the time, even though I have the CDs and stuff, which nobody listens to CDs anymore. But, I love it. And I think the music is so important in addition to his stories. But I think the music is what affected all of us, even him, like getting that out, explaining that, through his music was a really good way of him communicating how he was feeling. And it was almost like therapy in a way. But then they turned out to be really good songs. I mean, I don't know if anybody else listens to them, but I think they're really good songs. So, I mean, it's a good combination. So, I don't know, it's really intellectual and stuff, but it's cool, So I think the music affected me, affected a lot of his fans. He has about 1,000 fans here in LA. And we all remember the good times and the good songs, and we still sing it and do all the moves and everything that he did. So it's great.
When he would write music, were you ever like in the room with him, like while he was writing?
Sometimes, but not very often. He mostly got his inspiration when he was alone.
Mm.
But it was organic for him. He would get an idea. I mean, I remember a couple of times he would wake up in the middle of the night and just write some stuff down, like an idea popped into his head about the lyrics or about the melody or something, and he would just write something down. And then the next day he would be fleshing it out and working it out and working it out. And then sometimes he would bring the band in, and then he would go to rehearsal, and he would say, what do you guys think of this? And you guys want to add in any of your own, stuff? And they would kind of jam to everything, and then the song would kind of develop. So it was just it was really organic in that way. And he always had an idea of something he wanted to talk about. And there was always a purpose to these songs. He was very sarcastic sometimes.
Smart people usually are.
Yes. And and he was, I mean, it's like he wrote this song. There's a video of it that my brother-in-law, his twin brother, actually made of the concert he did here back in 2014 or 15 or something. And it's called The Wrong End of the Mississippi. He was born on the wrong end of the Mississippi River. He wanted to be a blues man, but he couldn't seem to get it right. So, because he was born on the wrong end of the Mississippi where he was from is up here. He wanted to be down there. I mean, he's really funny about the whole thing. The lyrics go, ask the sales lady for a mojo hand. She tried to sell me something that was made in Japan. She said, I got something you'd like better. She tried to sell me a mohair sweater, because, and then he says, the funniest line in that song is, black dirt farmers try to sow their seeds, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people called Swedes on the wrong end of the Mississippi River. Because a lot of Swedish people moved to Minnesota, and he was blonde hair, blue eyed too. So it was like, it's so funny because he wants to be black, or he wants to be something, cool with soul and all this stuff. And he's just this scrawny white guy.
I actually, so I did a podcast with a guy named Terry Manning, and white guy, and he actually lived in Memphis and did a ton of music with a lot of people. And Memphis is known for its blues and stuff, but he did a lot of music with like Led Zeppelin and ZZ Top. But he also did some with Stax, all the people who worked in there, and then he knew of all the blues around here. So it's very interesting.
It is.
I guess we as people, we always have this tendency to tell people to stay in their lane, and
yes,
it's sad because we we aren't allowing people to just grow as people, you know. And a lot of people use the term like culture vultures when they say like somebody takes somebody culture and they steal it and say it's their own. But in my eyes, it's okay as long as the person, you know, gives homage to where they got it from, you know.
Hmm.
Just like I guess Elvis is the most notorious one because they say
Right,
Elvis took
right,
blues and turned it into
right,
rock and roll.
right.
And he, you know, Elvis was in the Memphis area, but um, it's it's something that I think should definitely be appreciated. I was listening to another podcast and some guy was talking about that. He was like, if we never had these people who were willing to like something that they
Right,
wouldn't usually be accustomed to,
right.
you know, seeing a scrawny white guy with a bunch of blues, a black
Yes,
blues band or something
yes,
like that, then we wouldn't get these marvelous pieces of music, and we
yeah.
wouldn't get different perspectives and different mindsets,
Mhm.
and so I definitely
And all the great music that came out of it,
absolutely.
later.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
applaud people for doing things like what he did and his way of thinking
Hmm.
and I think there's something to be said about people who are willing to go out on a limb and take that risk of associating with people who are completely different from them.
Yes, yes. Well, that way he was cool.
Yeah.
He tried to be.
And I think that when musicians do that, sometimes they get attacked for it just because, again, like the stay in your lane type thing. Like I've seen
Hmm.
so many artists who will do different kinds of music and they'll just do something different, and their audience is like, no, no,
Right.
stop. But you know, sometimes it's good. You know, it's healthy for people to do something different, and even if people don't like it, you get to express yourself.
Yeah. And he was always making fun of himself. He would never say anything bad about anybody else or, put anybody else down. He would just make fun of himself. It's like, I was born in the wrong place. It was like, I should have been down there. Instead, I was up here with all this snow, land of snow and ice. He said, Lord knows you're going to shiver
Mm.
because he's not cool. It's not hot and the blues and all this stuff. So it's like he's making fun of himself and his culture. And I thought that was really cool. A lot of people love that song.
Did he get a chance to travel like and go to like you know, blues joints and stuff like that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, he did. Loved it. Loved it. He got to meet Muddy Waters. He loved Muddy Waters.
Hmm.
He was so excited when he got to meet him. It was like he was so nervous, and he is so cool because he got to meet a lot of people. He's kind of I kind of think of him sometimes as Forrest Gump because he got to meet all these people when he was really nobody, but he was in the right place at the right time. So he got to meet Muddy Waters. He got to meet Lenny Bruce. He got to meet all these people, like just because he was at the right place at the right time. So it's kind of cool.
And for people to understand that, it will definitely level up who they are. Because I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to make it, you need to just like be out and talk to people. Like, you don't have to be super outgoing, but just be places because you
Right.
never know like what conversation might strike up and who you might meet. So just go out, and
Yeah.
even if you know don't talk to a single person, you could at least
Right.
have the experience of just
Yes.
being around people and that, you know, like what you were saying with doing doing like oh, just remembering the stories, you know, all the
Mhm.
things that he had been through and all his experiences. Like just being around other people is great
Mhm.
for the brain. Like the
Oh yeah,
brain.
for sure.
I don't think we as humans were meant to be isolated, and I don't think we were meant to like be living on top of each other. But I do think
Right.
we were meant to share ideas, communicate, and just, you know, be around each other and have experiences.
I feel like we grow so much from that. I learned so much from other people just hearing their stories and hearing about their lives and just their experiences, I learn so much from that. I get a lot out of it when I hear other people tell their stories. I mean, even when I go to a support group for Alzheimer's and the place where he's at, and just hearing everybody else's perspective of what their loved one is like or how they're dealing with it, and it's really different. And then, what's interesting is a lot of these women, there's a lot of women in the group, just one guy, but they all say they had a horrible relationship with their mom. Like during growing up, there was this contentious behavior. Like it was like their moms never accepted them, or it was like problems. But now their mom is like, "Oh, you look so good. Your butt looks really good in those jeans," or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute. So it's interesting because we all go through a lot of stuff, and then we learn from it, from hearing other people's perspective, and it's just, I learn a lot from talking to people about grief and compassion. Whereas my feeling, and always our feeling, is I want to fix it. I want to fix it. I want to fix it. I want to make that person feel better. They don't need you to do that. They just want you to listen, or they just want you to be there, and they have to go through this dark place, this darkness that's going on right now. But just be there for them and say, whatever you're feeling, it's okay. And I accept it, whatever it is, And I've learned a lot about that, because being a caregiver type person, I always want to help people or fix it or tell them, what can I do? What can I do? But they don't really need that. They just want you to let them talk. So.
Yeah, I think people don't understand how much people actually just want to be heard. And that's something that I've learned by starting the podcast. When I was doing it, I was like, people will have stories. Like people have things they want to say. It's just most of the time people don't take the time to just sit and listen. And I think me doing podcasts has definitely helped me just understand how to just take in information by just sitting and listening instead of like talking to somebody to get out what I'm thinking. I'm just sitting here, just taking in, your stories and what you're trying to tell me, and then being able to just understand, your background and
Right.
information that you want to spill out.
Yeah.
And I don't think people usually understand, how healthy that can be. And I'm sure it's helped you, like when you were doing the book, like just understanding, you lived the life with them, but having to actually
Right.
retell the stories,
Right.
it's like unlocks another part of your brain.
It does. It does. And there's stories in here too that I didn't even know in some instances, and it's like, oh wow, I discovered this even after knowing him for all these years. All this new stuff came out. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and when you do that, I think it helps you understand more about your own life. Like
Mm-hmm.
it helps you, I guess, be more present.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that
Exactly.
I, it's really hard to get that through like a kid's brain, because
Right.
as adults we always tell kids, if I knew then what I know now, but
Exactly.
it's hard to get a kid to understand that mindset and that thought process of be present and
Right.
take in as much of what's going on around you as you can, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't get to do it twice. Like,
Nope. And don't you feel like as we get older, I mean, you're not old, but as we get older, the time just keeps getting shorter and shorter?
yeah,
So,
everybody who is older than me at the place I work they're always like, oh man, it seems like the years and the days just get shorter.
faster and faster. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a snowball. Is
Uh-huh. Like, slow down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when he started getting the symptoms of the Alzheimer's, did it seem like you were trying to cram as much of him as you could, because you're like, hey, it's coming. There's going to be a day where
Yes.
you might not remember my name,
Right.
might not remember things. Did you feel like I just want to cram as much good time as I can?
Yes, I did. And, he and I did a lot of stuff like, we went out, we did stuff. We traveled one last time, after the diagnosis, we went to Hawaii. We love to go to Hawaii. And we went to Hawaii and it was really fun. And, we just tried to recapture some of that stuff from the past and just, like you said, make new memories as much as we could. And, just be appreciative of each other a lot. I mean, that's kind of what we did. And we did spend a lot of time talking and just, cherishing each other. And we cried a lot together because he kind of knew what was happening before it was happening. And he would be like, I'm so sorry that this is happening, because
Mm.
he knew it was going to fall on me, like it was all going to be on me in a minute. And he even says in the book, my brain is half open
Mm.
and Renee is helping me fill in the rest. It's like Renee has to be my brain now. A lot of times when he's telling a story. And it was a little nerve-wracking when he was playing after the diagnosis and he would play live. I made a notebook with all the lyrics really big. So he could read and not forget the words. And I'd be in the audience, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, and, trying to make him do it as well as he could, and it's just sad, it's just sad, but I mean, it's a good thing. Thank God we got this published, because this is his life. This is his story. And he would want everything to be this way. In this book is the way he wanted it. So this is his version of his story. And we really didn't take any liberties with anything that he wouldn't have wanted in that book. I mean, there were his stories that he got out with this co-writer, Shannon Guyton. She was great. And, they just cranked it out. I mean, it was a process and it took years. I mean, the minute we got that diagnosis, so it's like 2014, by the time we got this thing published, it's a long time now. But it's good. It's a good thing. I'm happy that we have this preserved, and the music and the songs and like the chapters. There's lyrics at the end of every chapter, and the song lyrics, and then the names of the chapters are kind of related to the songs. So it's kind of all connected.
Who all was involved with the book? Did you get like bandmates, previous people he worked with, all that kind of stuff?
Everyone,
Okay.
everyone. We interviewed everyone, previous bandmates, previous people he ran into. He was a huge fan of Graham Parker, and he's actually in the book, quoted in the book, and he was friends with Gene Simmons. He knew Sting. He was, he knew all these people, and they all kind of comment on how what their take on him was at the time, that they knew him and stuff. And we had to get a lot of consents from everybody to put their stories in, and their pictures and everything. And they were all happy to do it. It was like they were just happy to do it. So.
Yeah, I think that having those kind of perspectives from people that were close to him is phenomenal.
Mhm.
That's something that you know when you put together like a documentary or something like that, people don't realize how valuable that is. I just recently watched the Kid Cudi documentary on Amazon,
Mhm.
and him and I mean Kid Cudi's this rapper slash singer from Cleveland, Ohio, and he was best friends with Shia LaBeouf. I had, I had no idea, but and he was really good friends or is really good friends with Will Smith's son and
Mm,
Jaden Smith,
Jaden. Mhm.
and I was like, this is pretty wild. Like, I had no idea he was friends with these people. But when they are, I mean, they had Kid Cudi in the documentary, but also, they're taking these stories from Shia LaBeouf a lot and Jaden. It's really cool just hearing from their perspective on
Mhm.
how they perceived Cudi and how they
Right.
and how they feel about him. And
Right.
and then hearing Cuddy, he's talking about Shia LaBeouf and their relationship and stuff, and that like back and forth is just so interesting because you don't
Yeah.
really get that if you just tell the story from one person's perspective.
Well,
Um,
and what we tried to do with the book, and what he loved the book that Neil Young wrote called Waging Heavy Peace. And he said the reason why he used to read music biographies all the time, but the reason why he liked that book is because he said it felt like a conversation. And that's what he wanted his book to be, a conversation. Like if he was just sitting there talking to you and somebody else is talking, and that's kind of what it's like. It's like, these people, their perspective and his, and, talking back and forth. And it's just really cool. So I think you do learn a lot about the other person, or you learn a lot about their perspective of things when you listen to somebody, say their version of something, you
is,
know.
is there any? I know you said you had a lot of pictures that
Yeah,
you wish you could have had in there. Was there any plans of like a movie or video or anything like that?
I would love to have a movie made of this book,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know. It's just I would love to have a movie made. I think it would be a great story just because it has so much depth, and there's the whole rock and roll aspect and the whole love story thing, and then there's just so much to it, and not making it almost famous, like just almost there, but not getting. And then I don't know, I think it would make a great story, a movie, but I don't know. Nobody's talked about that. It's just something I thought of too, but I don't know. Um,
And
and I would love to get his music out there. It's just hard because I'm the one in control of everything now, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I work in accounting. I can manage the business side, but that's it. But yeah, I mean, I try to keep that website of his up, and it's actually managed by a company in Kentucky. and and then we have It's Not a Rumor web page and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. We try to put out little stories all the time, and social media and stuff. We do all kinds of things. So we did have a launch a couple of weeks ago, and 105 people came to the crowdcast. So that was fun.
oh wow.
But I don't know. I mean, I think it would be great, but I'm just hoping people read the book and get something out of it, and learn something or enjoy it. There's a lot of funny stories too, because, there were a bunch of guys in a Winnebago and, a Suburban, and in the Ozarks, things breaking down. They had long hair. It was like, let's get out of here.
Wow.
And, he jokes about it in the book. And I don't know. It's cool. So,
Yeah, I mean, being able to reminisce like that in story form is always great. And I really hope that you can get this out in video format, just because I know how people are. Like, people hate to read, but they love to watch things.
yes.
Nowadays everything needs to be on Netflix and HBO and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, I would love that. And the book is on Audible if
Okay.
people want to listen to it rather than read it. And we also just set up a YouTube page, and we're going to have the few videos from back in the day. These are really dated, so but we're going to have a YouTube page with the few videos that we have on there. We're coming up with it, and it's just going to be called "It's Not a Rumor." I think on YouTube. So just remember, rumors, RUMOUR. Thank you, Freddie, for making it more difficult. But it's more poetic, the British way. So yeah. And I did create a bunch of merch, We have merch, t-shirts and hats and stuff, bags and junk. So
What are some things in the book that you feel like you really hope people get out of it that they might not just get, surface level just reading it.
First of all, I think you know what, you're passionate about something, you go for it. Don't give up, never give up. He was a scrawny kid from Minnesota who decided he wanted to be a rock and roll star, and he did it. He got to travel all over Europe and United States and everywhere, and he got to do a lot of cool things. I mean, it's like, don't give up. If you're really passionate about something, I think you go for it. Just like you with your podcast. You didn't, maybe you didn't know that it was going to be a big success, but it is. And people are getting a lot out of it. So I think go for it. Whatever that is, go for it. Whatever you're passionate about or you want to do, pursue that goal, pursue that dream, because nobody should be able to stop you. You could do it. You could do it. Whatever. You maybe not make $1 million, but it's okay. You're still going to be happy that you did it. And then another thing is I want people to understand a little bit about Alzheimer's and dementia and how hard it is to lose somebody to it and to lose one's brain and have them basically become a zombie. And it's very dehumanizing, and nobody would want to go through that, and it's just sad. And the problem is his body is still strong, but his brain is not, and who knows how long he's going to suffer like this. But yeah. It's just sad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, just hearing your passion about who he is and stuff, that kind of gets me. Just because I do music, and I have a wife, and I'd hate to leave her like that. That's
God, it's devastating because that's your person, So
yeah.
But I tried everything to fix him. I tried everything you could. I did everything there was. I tried hyperbaric chamber. I subjected him to so much crap, poor guy. But I tried all this oxygen therapy. I tried everything. But you do what you got to do, and you just step up to whatever that is. When he forgot how to, he hated it that when they took his driver's license away, because he loved to drive. But when he forgot to use toilet paper, I know that's kind of gross, but I would be there to hand it to him. And then when he couldn't even remember what to do with it, I would be there to help him out. And I gave him baths because showers hurt. People with Alzheimer's think that everything hurts.
Oh, wow.
It's like your brain doesn't know what's pain and what's not. It's like they could get cut and they don't even know it, because your brain has to fire some kind of a neuron or send a signal to tell that. And he didn't even know. So he thought the shower was really painful. So I gave him baths because that was easier. But then he would fight me because he would be like, what are you doing? But I said, I gotta wash the dirtiest parts, and but he was like, he just became my baby in a way. And it's a good thing we never had any kids. I never wanted any, but it's a good thing we didn't, because we would not want this passed on. And I needed to take care of him, and that's what I do now. So that's, it's okay. And I also learned so much about this disease. I mean, we had him genetically tested. He has 2 copies of this gene. So it's very prominent in his family. And I never put 2 and 2 together when his mom had it, and he's going to get it.
Yeah.
But, and also people with type 2 diabetes, they have a 50% chance of getting Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
Because there's a type, what Alzheimer's does in some ways, if your body becomes insulin resistant, and that's when it doesn't know how to process sugar, and it doesn't know. And so your blood sugar goes really high, and you become you're insulin resistant when you have type 2 diabetes. And that affects your brain, because your brain is getting too much sugar or not enough sugar or glucose or insulin. And so what happens is that's why in a lot of times 50% of people with type 2 diabetes get Alzheimer's. And so I reversed his type 2 diabetes
Wow.
with diet and exercise.
Wow.
Yeah. He put up with a lot. No sugar, no carbs.
Mm.
Poor guy.
The best things in life, right?
Exactly.
Oh man.
But he's healthy in his body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I just couldn't stop the Alzheimer's from getting him, but we did whatever we could, and I make him as happy as he can be right now. And a lot of people ask me, would you rather have your brain not know or your body? Would you rather be paralyzed and then still have your brain aware of everything that's going on? Or would you rather have your brain not know what's going on and your body be okay? And a lot of times people say, I would rather not know. I would rather have my brain not know, because otherwise, if I was paralyzed and trapped in my body where I knew everything that was going on, it would be worse
Yeah. Yeah.
than not knowing, you know?
Yeah.
So
Um, I'd say we ended here. It's been great. It's been
thank you
so
so
good.
much for asking me to be a guest.
Yeah, this is more than I expected.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
No, but thank you.
definitely hearing such a great story about who he is and the things that he's done. I do want to finish the whole book. We got your copy. Thank you so much
Good,
for
good.
sending that. And
Yeah,
I think that um, people need to understand, the severity of that disease and what it can do physically to people, but also emotionally to people. And I'm the type of person that sure, we can go to Mars and we can discover all kinds of things, but we've got people right here on Earth that are having very, to me, what seems simple problems that
right.
could be fixed. That I think we need to get started on that for sure.
Yeah,
But
that would be great. I would love that.
yeah, so I know we talked about everything with the book and everything, but go ahead and give everybody again, everywhere that they can find stuff and
Okay,
listen to music and all that good stuff.
thank you. It's called itsnotarumor.com, and rumor is spelled Rumour. And it's on Instagram and Facebook. It's Frederick Moore and Shannon Guyton with Shannon Guyton. And there's also the music publishing website, which is demophonic.com, which is DEMOPHONIC.com. And that's where you can see all of his music and all of the stories, even his biography in a way, like he wrote that. And you can listen to the songs and they're free. And he's also on Spotify and iTunes under the Cats and the New Cats, and even maybe Skokie. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's a lot of cool stories in here. I think it would be enjoyable. So yeah, give it a try.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for
Thank
coming on,
you.
and I hope the best for all your endeavors that you
Thank
end up
you.
doing for it's not a rumor, but
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
you're welcome. Alrighty, thank for everybody tuning in, and see you next time.